Hello everyone. Today's project is for you to sew for Christmas in July or sew early for Christmas itself in December. In 2017 I made a pattern up for the double oven glove, and today I'm going to show you how you can make that really seasonal, really happy. This one here, the blue one, is the one that we're going to work on. It has a snowman on the end on the glove. See that? There's a snowman. The other one, which you get included, there's two patterns you're getting for the price of one, and the other one is a Santa. You can see that. They are both basically made the same. There is two patterns because the Santa one, the applique actually goes underneath the binding. The snowman doesn't, so that's why you get two patterns. So if you've got all your Christmas fabrics out, which I'm sure you all have, this is an ideal thing to sew for your stalls. So we better get started because it's getting closer and closer. So this is the snowman oven glove we're going to make to begin with. I chose for this one, you can buy, or you've probably got in your cupboard, this is actually border fabric. You could buy it by the metre, but you cut these pieces off to make borders. But this is really pretty. It has snowman and Christmas snowflakes on. I've chosen that for this snowman. And we'll begin by cutting two strips. Now I've cut mine 8 inches wide. The sizes are all on the pattern. And remember that you're getting 2 for 1. You're getting the Santa and you're getting the snowman pattern as well in the same pack. So this is the snowman panel that I've cut out from there. Now you will need as well as those two 8-inch pieces, two 8-inch strips of lightweight wadding. Take them off there. So one goes between the bottom piece, goes on there, and the next piece. But there's a template in the pattern for the actual glove section. So you'll need two pieces of insulated wadding. Now you're going to put those in between the lightweight wadding, and that's for your heat protection for your hands when you're using your oven glove. So one will go on one end and this one will go on that end, and it's exactly the size of your the actual top glove. And that goes between the waddings there. So that's the first step. The other things you will need, you'll need obviously an 8-inch plain strip. That colour I've chosen to go with that, to go make your top pockets from. And I have already cut my bias binding. Now it is cut on the bias and stitched on the bias because you've got curves on either end, and you know you can't put straight binding around curves. So I've got that all ready, and I've used scraps of blue homespun just to make that up. You need a tiny scrap to make your little tag from. Your tag is just a 2.5-inch piece of fabric, folded into the centre, folded over again, stitched 1/8 of an inch down both sides, pressed and folded over, and that makes that little tag. Also you will need a few scrap pieces of fabric. You'll need the adhesive applique paper on the back to peel it off, ready to stick onto your top glove. In order to get 2 layers for your top glove of this plain fabric that I've chosen, you will have your 8-inch strip cut across your fabric. This isn't quite that wide, this is what I've got left over, but you fold it over from the outside in. Take the template, I'll use this one because it's easier for you to see. Take the template, put the straight edge on there and cut around the curve. Cut that out. So you'll have 2 of them. You'll have one on this end and one on the other end. And then you will end up with 2 pieces like this, like so. However, I like when I've got my piece on the end here, like you put your glove, you normally have it bound along the bottom folded edge, but in order for you not to have a bound edge, you can put in the crease a 1-inch strip of lightweight wadding, put it in the middle, fold it over, and then we're going to top stitch twice down there. It will give it equal strength to a piece of binding, but that just saves you having to cut another piece of binding and put it on the bottom. So I think that's good. So you've got that there, and you'll have this one there. And now you come to your applique pieces. So you'll be able to put your snowman on. Take your paper off, and when you're happy with how that looks, his little hat, that's his scarf around his neck. You can jiggle these around, of course, and have them any way that you'd like them. And his little scarf, just tuck the pieces under. Just play around with it until you've got what you want, and that's, you iron him on when you're ready. So once you've got him sorted how you want it, you will end up with that. That will now go on the end there, and I will applique those on, going through all layers with my double stitching along the bottom. This is the one I've just stitched, as I showed you before. It goes on the end like so. Try and line it up with the insulated wadding so that when you come to pin it on, you're going to trim around that curve, so it pays to have it lined up with that nice piece of insulated wadding underneath. Then when you've got your hand in, that's protection from the heat for you when you're using your oven glove. I've sewn that one. I'm now about to go and sew this one, which will go on the opposite end. Same thing, just repeat both ends. I stitched both the applique on the pockets, on the top pockets. Now before we can put the top pockets on, this all has to be quilted. Now you can quilt it straight, you can quilt it diagonally, you can stipple it. It doesn't matter how you quilt it, it's personal choice, because before we can put the pockets on like so, lining them up with the insulated wadding, we need that all to be firmly tied together. It's got to be nice and tight. So I would put about probably 2.5 inch if I was going to, or 3 possibly if I was going to straight quilt it. Diagonally about 2 inches, or however you choose. So I'm now going to do that. I'm going to mark my lines with an iron off pen. I'll draw them on, pin it, secure it, and stitch all layers together. I've quilted, straight quilted. This is nice and firm and thick. I've pinned on my 2 glove sections. Now if you remember, we have the insulated wadding just there, so we're going to cut around here. Now don't worry if you're just a tad out with your curve, because you're going to put your binding on, and before you put your binding on, we're going to zigzag all of these layers together to make it a little bit firmer, to put your binding on thinner. So I'm going to just cut around and just make my, I'll turn it round, sorry to be upside down. Just going to cut around my curve. Now I have trimmed, when I quilted my bottom glove, the main glove, I did trim it down. I cut 8 inches wide if you remember, but I have actually cut that back now to 7.5. So that's a good size. So if your top glove is a little bit wider, because it'll be 8, you need to take a 1/4 inch or so off the side. But I like to have more left over and cut it back straight than not have enough. So I'll just cut round both the end pieces. Let me find that. I think I will bring that just a fraction down. You can feel it underneath, so don't worry about that. It will look all right in the finish. I'll just cut around here. You can trim it, as I said, you can trim it back should you need to. Just cut those corners off. So I've got now 2 nice curved ends, and as I said, now I'm taking this to the machine and I'm going to actually zigzag, but not more than 1/4 inch wide, because remember your binding is going to go on, and you want that to encase all layers of your wadding and your top fabrics. So don't let it come out more than 1/4 of an inch because it will show beyond your binding. I have zigzagged the edges all the way around. Be very careful that you get all the layers in. You can tell if you just turn it to the inside so that you see you've got no gap there at all, so that when you put your hand in, there, you can feel all the way around that there's nothing come adrift. The next step, because we're going to put the tag on, we need the tag at the top. Now I cut my panel so that my I fussy cut it a bit so that the snowmen were in the middle, because I like that. Now this has got to go on, but we're going to stitch the binding on first. I'm going to start on the edge nearest to you there. I'll leave about 5 inches to join. So I'm going to come all the way around with the binding. Just wind that round here. When I get to this point here, I'm going to have to put the tag in, but I've got to take that binding over to the back. So I'm not going to put the tag on until I've stitched the top of the binding in. And I'll come back and I'll show you, once I've stitched the top binding on, I'll show you how the tag fits in, because the tag has to sit like that, but it has to be under the binding. So my binding is stitched on and I've joined it. If you want to know how to stitch the binding on and how to join it, there's 3 different ways you can join binding. If you look at my handy hints number 1, 2 and 6, number 6 will also show you how to cut bias binding really easily. So do go along and have a look at those little videos because they're very helpful. Now I'm going to turn this obviously to the underneath. You can hand stitch it, I machine stitch it, and one of those videos will show you how that's done. But we've got to put on the tag. Now this tag is a bit thick there, so what I'm going to do is it needs to be caught underneath that binding there, but it needs to come up that way so it sticks out at the top. So I'm going to stitch it just in there. I'm actually going to stitch over that stitch line. Now I didn't put it in the beginning because you can get it wrong very quickly. So I'm going to stitch it into there. Sorry, that way. Wrong way around. Stitch it onto there, like so. Then I'm going to bring the binding over. Hope you can see that. And stitch the binding down. And then I'm going to flip it up and just put a tiny little row of stitches there right on that seam line along there, and it will hold the tag up as it should be. So I'm now going to go and stitch my binding to the back, stitch in the tag, and then we're finished. So I have stitched the binding to the back. I've hand stitched it this time actually, thinking I need the practice. The tag I have put on, it's secure underneath the binding, but I don't think I need to top stitch it, so I've left that. I think that looks really nice. Now, so that's our oven glove finished. This red one here is also included in the pattern. You're getting 2 patterns included in this one for the price of the 1 pattern, and it has a different glove. It has a different section. The actual, if I can just move this to there, the actual glove section is appliqued on. There is a face, which is a beard, there's a nose, a bobble, and top stitching for the hat, which, if I can just move that there, the top stitching. So I've appliqued that on, and I've actually, on the pattern, you'll see that there is a cutout, an applique cutout for the moustache, but you could, if you chose, just put a darker, you could draw a line on and just stitch a darker thread to outline a moustache. So that's how this finishes up, and that's how it starts. But the actual oven glove itself, that will be the whole shape. The applique is caught underneath the binding. So that pattern, as I said, will be included in these. Turn it around the other way for you. That pattern will be included along with this one. and you don't have to pay anything extra for it. That's my gift for you for Christmas in July. So if you've enjoyed the project, I mean, this is really good fun. It's good for your Christmas stalls, so you can get plenty of these made. Use all your Christmas fabrics that you've got in your cupboard or your boxes. And if you've enjoyed the video, remember, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe and ring the bell, press the bell, so that we can give you a notification anytime that we put a new project out. And I will go along to the Etsy shop because the patterns for this and all my other patterns are in there. Have a good browse, and I hope you'll find something that you will like. So until next time, I will say goodbye and happy Christmas in July.